So in this part, basically, I'm going to talk more specifically about how to design slides, okay? And judging by what I see here every week, you guys already know most of this stuff anyway, because you are very good at making slides. So, I mean, probably, I'm going very fast on this part, because you guys know probably pretty much most of these points. But one point I'd like to stress is why are presentations important for interaction design? The thing is, and this actually comes from my experience working in the industry. I've been there 8 years of my life in two different industries, telecommunication and Google. Believe it or not, most of the time when you get to very, very important meetings, decisions are taken on very short presentations, okay? And even like decisions that involve, either investing a significant amount of money, not investing that significant amount of money, continuing with a certain line of work, or firing people, all these decisions that are very, very meaningful in a employee's life are taken in very short amount of time. So you will be probably asked in your job when you finish university to write down written documents and reports, but be assured that in most of the cases, people that will take decisions on those reports will not go through the written report. We'll actually wait for a short presentation of 15 minutes, 20 minutes, basically to take that decision. And so it's very, very important for you guys to be able to be super effective in delivering those presentations, because they will be super important in your career, okay? And the other point that I would like to stress is that at the very beginning of this course, we spoke about design principles, and how design principles are very, very important for interaction design. But the presentation in itself, the presentation that you're going to do next week, but also all the future presentations that you're going to do in your career, they can also be considered as a form of interaction design. Because in a sense, you're designing like some stuff that goes on the wall, and you're also scripting what you're going to say and how you're going to move in the room as you go through the content that is on the wall. And if you do this correctly and you've applied basically the same design principles that we have learned for interaction design in general, I think you're going to also improve the quality of your presentation, okay? And so this is actually something pretty obvious to you. You probably guys know all about this. But one thing that we have learned by looking at some of bad examples of design is that if a design is busy, then typically this overloads the user and so forth. But same thing can be said for slides and slides design. So if you present like a slide like this, probably most people in the room are not going to read it. Okay, so try always to have like one point that you want to make per each slide in your deck, right? Also, the way you actually summarize the content of the slide in the title actually makes sense, because in itself it gives you already the message that you want to deliver on a single line, okay? And oftentimes, you see slides full of bullets. And I personally hate bullets. I think this is something that also is true for many, many other people out there. We oftentimes tend to abuse them in presentations. It reduces the interest from the audience. And again, if the audience doesn't listen, then you're losing their interest. And therefore, your presentation is not as memorable as it can be. And same thing we have seen in interaction design for other things. I mean, simplicity is key. The less you put on the slides, the better. If you put lots of concepts and details into a slide, then you increase the cognitive load that your audience will have to use in order to parse the information that is contained on the slide. And so by doing that, you are not helping them following what you're saying, you're basically making their life more complex. Visual design principles that we have seen also in the course do apply in the design of slides, because slides are in itself an artifact that uses like the visual channel to deliver a message, right? So if we use like very bad fonts choices or fonts that are too hard to read, we decrease the readability of the content, and therefore we actually make the life of our audience more complex. Okay. It's important also in interaction design, because oftentimes we talk about designs which in itself takes a visual form, a shape, to use visuals. This is something I told you multiple times today when we were going through the different presentations of the different groups. You are talking about how you're going to change your design because of the tests that you conducted, but you never show basically how the design is going to change. You never put like a visual that says, you know, we're moving this button from here to there. I mean, show it. Don't just put like a bullet point on the list, because it's much more effective if you show how the design is going to change. And obviously, you know, again, visual design by combination of fonts, they not only impede people from perceiving the content of the slides, but they also have low accessibility, low usability for people that might have like visual impairments or poor visual skills. Also, because you are going to conduct usability studies, you are not only have data from the interviews, but you are going to have also data that comes from the quantitative comparisons that you are going to run, from the statistics that you run in the next few days. So I think it's important to use data wisely. It's important to add these numbers into that because they provide more substance to your arguments, but also you need to help people that see those numbers to understand, to put them in context, right? So if you say, for instance, 30% of people we spoke to said that, I mean, what does it mean 30%? Is it like 5 people or is it 500? I mean, help me relate this to my life, right? To an actual number. Also, tell me, the kind of people you spoke to. I mean, is this like a professor? Is this like a student? Is this quote coming from an engineer? Is this quote coming from a retiree? Tell me a little bit about these people. Help me to process the data in a way that I can actually understand what you're saying. And obviously you're going to include charts. I imagine you're going to use like visuals also to show these kind of visual comparisons. When you design that, when you put graphs in, try always to help the reader to understand. So a very common mistake that I see very often is that you don't qualify the axis of charts. You don't say what is what. For instance, what is the x-axis telling me? What is the y-axis? Or in an example like that, I mean, it's very, very hard to make sense of this time series. Okay? We also have seen how redundance can help navigate information. So you're not just reporting numbers, but you're also helping the audience understand what those numbers means. So in this example, I mean, you might think that both are equally valid, but actually if one category says, people didn't like something, then probably you might associate that to a color that typically indicates a problem. So that's why this match is more powerful than the other match. We spoke at length about this, so I'm not going to spend much time on this. But if you have like percentages, it's always better to qualify what those percentages means in the context of your research. If you have multiple frequencies, it's always best to order them or to rank them basically from the most frequent to the least frequent, so that visually actually we navigate the information from the category that actually is, happen to be more evident in your research to the one that actually appeared less frequently. And you're going to use video snippets a lot in your final presentation. So this is like an example that comes from a usability study. Let's see. So let me play this again. So this comes from a usability study of accessibility. So you see the person doing the swipe because he wants to navigate the full list of events, and then after a while, basically, he keeps swiping, but nothing happens, and there is no feedback whatsoever of what's happening on the app, right? So that indicates like a usability issue that was identified in one of the studies. So I'm using this as an example because you can see basically a real person, a real user interacting with the application and bumping into one of the usability issues that I'm going to talk about in the rest of the slides. I also show this example because it's very short. You're going to have like only 13 minutes, so you cannot play like a video that lasts like 2 minutes because it's too long, right? Focus on what is most important and have like this very short videos to support your research findings. Okay, questions? Comments? All right, so I guess it's about time for a break. So we take 15 minutes now, and